Welcome to the Win All Day Everyday podcast presented by Prairie Hockey Academy. My name is Barret Kropf. I'm the general manager and head coach of the U15 prep team at Prairie Hockey. And my co-host tonight is Justin Simpkins, the director and owner of the Prairie Hockey Academy. Welcome to the show, Justin.
Thanks, Barret. Episode 10. Here we go.
Unbelievable. I can't believe that we're 2.5 months into this. It's really exciting for us to be 10 episodes in. I know people maybe celebrate like 100 or 1,000, but I think getting 10 off the board is pretty remarkable.
It is episode 10. And, it's pretty cool to have a special guest today that was part of the original or inaugural team, I should say, that kind of helped us get really to year 7 of Prairie Hockey Academy. So excited guest, excited for episode 10 today.
Yeah. And before we get into that alumni flavor of having our guest tonight, just want to give a big shout out to Josh Kropf. And Josh has been our producer for the previous 9 episodes of our podcast, and Josh has transitioned in his career a little bit here, and so we've handed off to a new producer. But really thankful for Josh's creativity and his hard work in getting these episodes launched and rolling. And we know that he's going to continue working with PHA on some other projects, and this podcast wouldn't be at stage 10 without him. So Josh, big fella, Joe, we love you, and thanks for getting us this far into episode 10.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Josh, for helping us get here, and excited for as he helped us transition to Benji here. And I know our last week's podcast we were a couple days late on our release date, so apologize for everyone. But thanks for the grace on that as we transitioned a bit. Yeah.
So jumping into episode 10, week 10, like we said, alumni flavor. The 17-18 season was the inaugural season that Prairie Hockey kicked off, and you had a kid from Speedy Creek who's now playing. He's a 20-year-old with the Prince Albert Raiders, spent some time and some great years over in Red Deer. Has had an opportunity, getting invited to the World Junior Summer Camp, a couple of NHL prospect camps, and now, like I said, he's starting goaltender for the Prince Albert Raiders, and we're really excited to welcome tonight Mr. Chase Coward. Welcome to the show, Chase.
Hey, Barret. Thanks for having me tonight. It's always huge when I can do things like this for you guys because you've been so crucial to my career. So it's always good when I can give something back.
Yeah, well, you've had a couple of stints with PHA, and let's talk about your playing stint with us, and the sort of what was your genesis? Obviously, a brand new academy. I guess a small town Saskatchewan guy like yourself moving to a place like Cairnport wasn't completely foreign. But what was your thought process? Why did you choose Cairnport and Prairie Hockey Academy at that point in your career?
At that point in my career, I just kind of thought it was a good fit. And like Kirk Mullen, I was kind of friends with him at that point, and he went out for a tour and kind of told me, what he thought, and he was going to go there. And so I came out for a tour and came out for a camp, and, I enjoyed it out there, and I thought they were going to have a really good program out there. So then I had the discussion with my family, and we decided to, end up going out to PHA or Cairnport.
And talk about that in terms of like your physical development. Like if I remember the story right, I think maybe you were even cut from the local Swift Current elite program there and found your way over to Prairie. What was your development like over those 2 seasons in terms of you as your physical development? Is that something that really benefited you?
Yeah, it was unreal because, as you mentioned, my first year of Bantam, I got cut from the AA team. So I ended up playing house and then single A at the end of the year because we aren't big enough to have a single A team all year. But then I ended up going to PHA second year, Bantam, first year midget. And those probably, if I didn't do that, I probably wouldn't be where I was today. Just because being on the ice and in the gym every day just kind of helped skyrocket my physical abilities and just like my techniques, like just all that time spent on ice was just so crucial that I probably wouldn't have got if I just stayed at home.
Yeah. Well, we've seen that you've been a great, athlete, a student athlete that's worked hard and you've earned that reputation as a great goaltender because of the work that you've put in and really glad that PHA could be a part of that. Was there other areas of development that happened in your life? Like, just even you as a leader, how would you describe your maturity over those 2 years at PHA?
Yeah, it was just like even off the ice, like living away from home. Like I was fortunate enough to live with the Mullins, and, Carrie took pretty good care of us, but some points we still had to fend for ourselves, and kind of taught me as a 20-year-old. I moved away in grade 9, I think. So I've been away from home for 5-ish years, and it's kind of just helped me cement my foundation so I can succeed away from home when I got into the Western Hockey League and midget AAA, because I already knew what it was like to, be away from home, and I wasn't trying to adjust to that. All like coming into such a high level of hockey, I kind of was already adjusted to that.
Right, and then you're making the jump to the Western League. I think that's pretty fantastic opportunity. Obviously, it's the dream of many of the guys that are at our academy and other academies, is to be able to lace it up for whether it's their their hometown team. In your case, would have been Swift Current, or somewhere else like Red Deer that picked up your rights. And was the Western League one of your goals? And what did it mean for you to play a couple of those games early in your career?
Yeah, I mean, the Western League, like, I grew up with billets, so I always looked up to those guys. So, like, ever since I was, I don't know, grade 5, grade 4, I was like, I want to play in the Western League. Like, I want to do this just like my billets did. And I've always held on to that. Like, now, when I get my helmets done, I have, all their numbers on the back of my helmet to remind me that I want to be like them. And just, like, sometimes it feels surreal when I think about it. I'm like, I was in the same league that grade 4 me said that I wanted to be in, and I've had success in the league. And now I'm the billet to a little kid that wants to do the same thing I did. So it's just, seeing everything come full circle is just kind of a surreal feeling, especially in my 20-year-old year.
That's pretty cool. Tell maybe what were a couple of the guys' names that you were billets for, and that kind of invested in your life as a young guy?
Yeah, well, we had Stuart Skinner. I still, talk to him when I go up to Edmonton. Landon Bull was our first billet, and he was the one that kind of, like, I hate to pick favorites, but it'd probably be him, our first.
Yeah.
I just have such a good bond with him. Like, I still text him regularly to this day. He's over in Europe. Then we had Taz Berman, Logan Fladell. Taz is out in Europe. Logan's in, I think, the A. Then we had Joel Holford for a bit for camp. And, I still keep in touch with him sometimes. And just, those bonds you create with those guys, you kind of learn, the pro habits that they have. And obviously Stuart and Landon, all of them have played pro at some stint. So it's, they're great examples to look at for me.
Talk about the, after you spent a couple of seasons there in Red Deer, and you had a fantastic year a couple ago. You kicked out, a 2.09, goals against, and a pile of wins on a good program, and you get an invite to the World Junior Summer Camp and an NHL camp, and then all of a sudden things derailed. Like, talk about what happened in that sort of into that off season, and when you sort of got that gut punch of like, something's got to change here.
Yeah, like, it was kind of the end of playoffs. As my body was starting to feel it, I was in a lot of pain, struggled to walk some days. So after season, I went for some x-rays, got those back, and they were like, hey, like, you might be able to do it. Then I go down to Buffalo. They decided to keep me off the ice just because I had World Junior Camp like a week and a half after it or something. They wanted to keep me healthy. So then I just didn't skate in Buffalo, and then I got back, and Brent, Red Deer, wanted to send me for some MRIs and stuff. And then once those came back, I found out that it was pretty serious, and I kind of had two options. I could either kind of push through it, or I could, quit essentially and hang him up. And I made the decision later to hang him up. I mean, I didn't go to World Junior Camp just because the team didn't want me to, because everyone was kind of unsure of what was going on, so they wanted to save me for the season. But I ended up getting two options, and I was in too much pain to play through it, so I decided to hang him up.
Must have been a devastating decision. Like, that's for a young guy that's battled through, some up and downs in minor hockey, to come to academy and then to have a great couple of years in Red Deer, to all of a sudden just be throwing that curveball. What was your mindset going into that decision process?
Yeah, there was a lot of days that, you're debating it. Like, every kid dreams and watches the World Juniors at Christmas, and just to get that invite and to go to that camp like it just meant so much to me. And, you know, at that point, my career was, you know, on an uphill trend, and kind of to be knocked down like that, it was hard. Like there's a lot of uncertainties, a lot of, you know, what do I do now if I don't play? What if I do play? And just at the end of the day, I know I had a lot of conversations with my parents, and I decided that, you know, the pain was just too much to play through. So I decided to hang them up and look at other options to do in life.
Yeah, and I guess that led to a phone call to Eric Robitaille, who, you know, another guy in your life that you might be able to call a mentor. I know a lot of guys do, and a friend. And that phone call led to a phone call to me to ask if we could look at having Chase Coward join us as an assistant coach. And I was like, I should probably sit down for a minute. What are you talking about? And so, I mean, talk about that. You know, why did you reach out to Eric? What I don't know if that was your first phone call or not, but how did that happen?
I forget, I was out there or something, and I knew you guys were looking for an assistant coach, and I think it was out there when I was doing that goalie camp, and, you know, I talked to Robes about it a little bit. And he's like, yeah, like, I'm sure we could have you out, and I mean, to give back to the program that you guys have. And I mean, Robes has been, I guess, somewhat of my coach for those 2 years I was there. He was always running around with the hockey ops stuff, but he came out when he can, and I mean, we played video games with him in COVID. Like, he was one of the boys essentially, so it was a pretty easy phone call to make and, you know, tell him what was going on. And then, yeah, he was like, yeah, I mean, I'll talk to Justin, try and see what we can do. And you guys had a spot, and I was very thankful for that, because it was a little later, so I didn't know what I wanted, if I wanted to go to school that year. And I mean, I really didn't that year, just because it was such a long year already. So I'm like, you know what, I'll go try coach for a year and, you know, see how that goes.
And you got slotted in with a legend, right? With Lauren Mulliken. Mooner was your, the head coach for that team that year, and I'm sure that you were able to, just glean some wisdom off of Mooner and pick his brain on some stuff. But also, I think how you open this podcast in terms of just wanting to always give back to the game, and that's why you're on the show tonight. But even you wanting to come in and help coach just speaks to your character of wanting to give back to the game and not, just sort of waste what the Lord's given you as a skill to love the game and play it well.
Yeah, I mean, I was super grateful to get paired with him. I mean, he coached me my Elite 15s year, so there's a lot of jokes made about that year, because I mean, you see a totally different side of him from like a player perspective and a coaching perspective as like a coworker essentially. So it was really good to work with him. I mean, he taught me a bunch about the coaching side, and he taught me a bunch when I was still playing. So just like having a guy like that where you like know what he's like as a coach, as a player point, and then as a like coach point, just kind of helps you see both sides and kind of mesh them together. So that was really good.
Yeah, it was pretty good. And I think you're a huge asset to Lauren. I mean, as you know, we don't use VCRs anymore for video editing and breaking down games. And I think you came in as a huge help for him to do a lot of that technical side. I mean, what was it like working as an assistant coach with Lauren, other than maybe just that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of days where I felt like an IT guy with him, but even like I'd throw in some video, like throw together some video for us, and then we'd go over it, or we'd watch the game after. Like we played on hockey TV, I think it is. And then we'd take clips from the game and break them down. And he'd like explain kind of what was going on and what he seen. Like I had to do all like the clipping and everything, but he explained kind of what he's seen in the game and what was going on. So I kind of got to, see that. And then he'd always ask me like, hey, like, what do you think happened here? Or what do you think would work here? So he always asked for my input too, to see, if I was understanding what he was saying. Right.
Yeah. He's a good teacher in that sense. And I imagine that your knowledge of the game probably just increased from spending a couple months with him, having him like just what he sees when he watches video.
Yeah, no, it definitely did, like from a coaching standpoint. And there was a few arguments about goaltending, because his goaltending style was a lot different back then than ours is now. So I had to defend the goalies a few times, but Yeah, no, other than that, I learned a lot because, I mean, he's coached for how many years and how many different teams. So it's unreal that way. And, I've seen his practice like booklet, probably still have some practice sheets at home of drills he drew up, and just kind of see how to run efficient practices and, working games.
Right.
And as your season was going along last year and you're in this assistant coaching role, you've got, like you shared here, you're helping Mooner out and he's helping you and whatnot. Mentally, you're still going through the process of a guy that's only hung him up like 2-3 months prior. There had to be that in the back of your mind, that mindset of like, man, if I could just get this fixed, maybe I could come back and play. Like that bug obviously didn't leave you. So talk about your mental strength and your mental, like how you dealt with that adversity those 2 months.
Yeah, I mean, those 2 months were, the coaching helped kind of take me away from what was going on, but seeing, the regular season start and everything, there's a thought of, oh, like I could be there, I could still be playing, but I just kind of used that thought. I, kept in shape, kept working out just in case if something did happen. And then, I got a call from my agent one day and he's like, yeah, like we got a surgeon, we can do it. But it was uncertain if I was going to play again. We were just going to do it for a better quality of life, essentially. But then, I mean, I ended up getting them done and he said they weren't too bad and I could return to play. So it's kind of the light at the end of the tunnel that, when I was at the start, when I didn't know that and I was still working to get kind of back or be ready if that happened, I really appreciate myself for doing that because it helped me come back quicker instead of just being like, oh, hang them up, I'm done, kind of. I like never really hung them up. I always kind of kept training. I just didn't play or skate.
Right. And I mean, hip surgeries, it's not an easy surgery. I just had mine ripped off and torn back on and everything else twice in the last year. So I know what I've had to go through with my hip as an old coach has been bombing around here for a while. But as a young guy, when they told you that like we can do this to give you a quality of life, but you probably never play again, and all of a sudden you get this news that actually went better than we expected, and you can play. Like what now? Now what's your mindset? How pumped are you at that point?
Oh, I was so excited. Like I remember, when I got it done. After I came out of surgery, it wasn't even as bad as they thought, so it was even better. So then the rehab wasn't as long and everything, so it was kind of okay, now it's done, or well, I guess one's done. Let's get the next one done, rehab them, get back. And I remember after my first one, I might have still been on the drugs they gave me a bit, but I was still texting our trainer in Red Deer, and I texted him. I can find the text. I said, I will be ready for playoffs. And he thought I was joking, but I ended up coming back like a month and a half earlier. And I mean, I said that as just, I didn't really think I would be, but then I ended up being back for playoffs. So it was kind of a funny moment.
Yeah, I mean, so you went. How many months of rehab was it? I know you spent a lot of time with Aaron Baker and some of her true movement machines, and just doing those kind of like Pilates workouts to get those hips back. And I think you've credited her for a lot of that success and helping you get ready. But I mean, how many months of rehab were we talking?
Well, I had my left one done in October and then my right one done in December. Like those months were kind of like weren't full rehab. Like I was rehabbing my left, but my right still needed to get done. And it wasn't until after my right got done, I think I went home for a week. And then after that week, I went up to see, Aaron Baker with True. And I maybe spent, I don't know, a month, maybe, middle of January, middle of February, training with her. I mean, that was huge, helped so much. And then my goalie coach, Ian Gordon, he's up in Edmonton too. So that worked out perfect. So I could skate with him while I was also at True. So then just those two, like, professional kind of assets just help kind of speed up that recovery. So in the long term, it was like 4 months, but if you go from when I got my right one done, it was maybe 2 months till I played a game, month and a half. It was maybe it was maybe 2.5 weeks till I was skating.
So after obviously up to 4 months there of rehab, Chase, I still remember the day, right? You'd given us a bit of a heads up that, you might be getting back in the lineup. And I remember it was going to happen this day. And it might have been Jana, it might have been your mom that sent me a text. And I remember Robes and I went on the Rebels website and looked at the roster, and all of a sudden somebody was moved off it and they didn't have another goalie on it yet. And then the social media made an announcement that he's back, right? And it had this image of Chase Coward, and you got to start that night. And I mean, tell us about the emotion of that. And it was, you were what, 13 seconds away or something from a shutout in that comeback game. Talk to us about that.
I mean, the boards did me a broken stick, and the boards did me dirty in those last 13 seconds.
Yeah.
But the emotions were surreal. It was honestly like I was starting in my first Western League game again. Like, just to be back in that league and, back where I was playing for the past year and a half. It was just, overwhelming kind of emotions for both Canada. But then, as soon as that puck drops, you got to be able to shut everything off and shut them out and play hot. So it was good for, the length of old Canada. And then can't really tell you much about how I felt the rest of the game because I tend to just kind of shut everything off. So,
yeah. And two things on that, and then I kind of want to get into, even Minnesota's camp this year with you. But I think number one, you came, yes, you were still training the whole time. But you came to Prairie Hockey Academy and you accepted a role as an assistant coach, and you were full on and in it until you found out maybe there was an opportunity for you to get back. And because you invested so greatly in that time that you were here, I just remember that team, the U16 prep team, and just how jacked they all were for you, right? That as much as they lost a coach and they missed you as their coach and mentor, like, man, were the Hallways excited when they found out that Chase Coward was starting again. And you kind of grafted in a bunch of Red Deer Rebel fans all of a sudden, and probably PA Raider fans now. And so I think that just shows when you invest in something with your character and with your whole intentionality and heart, you had a lot of fans. You created a lot of fans here. And so that was neat. The other piece is just, one of the strengths that I've seen in your game that's really shone through, I think, it started to show up in that Elite 15 season, and that is your mental strength. And I think you and I could agree right now, I think, that it wasn't your strength your first year when you came to Prairie Hockey Academy. And I feel like I need to tell a story about that, but maybe some input from you first.
Yeah, I mean, when I came in, it was definitely not. I know exactly what story you're going to tell.
Well, which one?
Oh, yeah, that's true. There's a few. There might have been a few sticks over crossbars, but there was, when I came in my first year, I mean, I was kind of always hard on myself, wanted to be perfect, and then kind of working with Humble Strong a bit and started talking to the sports psych a bit. I just kind of understood that, it's a higher level. You're going to get scored on. Stuff's going to happen. Like, if you dwell on it, you're probably going to let 4 more in, or you can, get it, goes in, it's done, over, can't change it, move on, next shot. I think I really learned that in the second year I played in that Elite 15 year. And I just feel like I've just kind of carried that with me kind of throughout my rest of my career. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think kudos to you that, you sought out some help. You as a leader, you decided to take responsibility, do some productive things with what you needed to get better at, and talk to a sports psych, dig into our Humble Strong material, start some self-talk with yourself and some breathing. And I think the mental side of your game's come so far. It's exciting to see. So congrats on that. Year goes by, or I guess this offseason went by, and you get a phone call from Minnesota. So, I mean, walk us through that. Here you were, assistant coaching with Prairie Hockey Academy this time last year, and maybe an NHL camp wasn't really on your radar, or something you thought would happen again at that point.
No, I mean, I mean, I just kind of was more focused on, coming back for the season and all that. And then one day I get a phone call from my agent and he's like, hey, like Minnesota wants you to come to camp. And I'm like, Minnesota who? And he's like, the Wild, like NHL. And I just I went silent for a few seconds and I'm just like, I didn't know what to say. Like, I still don't. Like, it's just such a surreal thing to, go down to Buffalo and, kind of miss out on that camp. But getting that phone call a year later saying, someone else wants me to come. And it was just a surreal feeling. Like, I can't even explain it. Just hearing that I was going to get another opportunity like that again. I was just so grateful for it.
As the summer rolls along, to play in the Western League as a 20-year-old is a huge accomplishment. There's limited numbers that can be on each team, and when you start to look at Red Deer's roster and you maybe realize that you could be on the trading block, was Prince Albert ever a location that you thought you'd be, and how did you kind of manage that over the summer? Again, going back to your mental toughness, knowing that you're probably going to get traded, and having to a new coach, a new locker room, a new set of teammates. How did you mentally work through that?
I mean, Red Deer was really good. They kept me updated through the summer, kind of like what was going to happen. But I mean, this trade didn't go through till like a week or about 4 or 5 days before like I came up to PA. So, I mean, I didn't really have a whole bunch of time to dwell on it. It was just kind of, okay, you got traded. You're going here. And I mean, I've known, a few guys play on this team. I've had like Gordo, like our goalie coach. He knows the goalie coach here. Like, there's a lot of connections from Red Deer to here and connections I've made like throughout my playing career. So, that kind of helped me feel comfortable. And I knew Red Deer would, send me to a place that they deemed would be a good fit for me. So, I trusted them and didn't really overthink anything and just kind of, went into it as, hey, I'm a 16-year-old again, new team, kind of solidify a role in the team. And then, but now that I'm 20, kind of, take on some more leadership for the young guys. And I feel like I've adjusted pretty well to, the new lifestyle of PA.
Yeah, it's good on you for just keeping that mindset, as Justin's talked about, and just we've seen it ever since you arrived at PHA and through all the adversity that you've had to handle. You've been in cultures, I would say, of excellence. Obviously in Red Deer, Sutter runs a great program, a demanding coach that sets the bar high when it comes to performance and excellence, that creates a championship pedigree culture. And now you're in PA with Truett and pretty much cut from the same cloth, I would say, as Sutter is there in Red Deer, in terms of just being a very demanding coach, but a coach that really loves his players and respects them to, set that bar high. And I think this week, we've seen in the news, obviously, some some curveballs that have maybe, derailed some plans for, a coach down south there in Columbus. In terms of just, Babcock was known as a demanding coach, but maybe his players didn't sense the love and didn't have the culture of that excellence, and it didn't really create great opportunities for his players to excel. For you, experiencing both Sutter and Truett in some demanding situations, but cultures of excellence, what are some things that you've really benefited from in those situations?
Yeah, I mean, I had Steve Konowalchuk too. He was the same as Brent. Brent brings in the same-minded people, but like, there's going to be days that are hard. Like, they're going to demand a lot out of you. But I think the thing I learned the most is, yeah, it might be hard and, you might not enjoy it some days, but they're doing what's best for you. And they want to build a foundation for you so that when you go on to, other teams where they're not, maybe as strict or something, that, you're a leader, you stand out. And at the next level, you stand out. So I think the big thing I learned is that, those guys always have your best interests in mind. I mean, their doors were always open. Like, I remember I've had lots of conversations with all three about just random stuff happening. And, they're very all understanding, as scary as they might seem on the ice. I mean, they all understand we're human beings, and just, you're basically their children for 10 months, and, they care for you a lot. And I know, still talk to them sometimes. And it's just, you always got to remember that you might get ripped or you might get skated, but they're doing what's in your best interest to help you get to the next level.
Yeah, it's a fair analogy in terms of just how much they cared for you. I think that's really the thread that runs through when we talk about transactional coaches or transformational coaches, right? And to me, I think that's a tipping point. Like, it's fair to be hard on your athletes and to establish that culture of excellence, but when you're doing it for the sense of what have you done for me lately, and you don't really care, about you as a human being, then that's where things just come off the rails. And I think that's honestly what we've seen here in the last 48, 72 hours.
That's right. I think we talk about this lots too, right? Internally amongst our staff, that you can have high standards and expectations for your student athletes and your players, at the same time while holding high standards in your relationships with your players, right? And so, meaning that they understand that you love and care for them, and that you can still build a strong relationship and get to know them while still having high standards at the same time. It's not either or. I think some people think that, it has to be one way or the other, and maybe that was somewhat of the transactional style, where you heard about some of the coaches who, you didn't know who they were outside of the ice or barking at the player, or they didn't get to know you either. They just felt like they couldn't have a relationship with you. And I think Dave King actually said something on the Spittin' Chicklets podcast just about a lot of the younger, the new and up and coming coaches that are able to have that, they keep their relationship standards high while also their playing standards and expectations. And he said that was one area, like, I didn't realize, or I wish I would have known that more. He said in the Spittin' Chicklets, he goes, we didn't really mix with the players or build relationships with them or get to know them very well. It was just all about standards and expectations of the on ice and performance side. So I think today's day and age, and the athlete, guys your age, Chase, and younger, I think that relationship standard is a really important piece to be able to hold high performance standards as well.
Yeah. I mean, even as like coaching at Prairie, I was coaching the 16s. I mean, I'm a younger guy. I've been through it, so I could relate to what they're going through. And I feel like just the relationships I built with them, like if they had anything, they let me know, and, we figured something out, or just kind of those relationships as a younger guy. Cause, I feel like it was easier because they seen me as a younger guy. I was still kind of, just got out of hockey, and I've, been through a few coaches in my career, and just kind of that bond with players off the ice is just such a major thing nowadays that, is a huge asset to teams.
We're going to get into a segment here with you, Chase, to ask you a bit of advice. But before that, I'm going to throw a quick story in here, because the connection, Prince Albert and Stevie Konowalchuk. I was playing midget AAA in Prince Albert, and Steve's brother Brian was playing for us our first year, and Steve tried out that year as well, but Steve didn't make it. Brian did. And Steve went and played basically midget house in Prince Albert with, I think they were the Taco Time Raiders or something like that. He'd gotten cut from AAA as a 16-year-old, and the next year he made the AAA team, lit up the league, went to Portland the next year. So as a 17-year-old, lit up the league, scored 54 goals as a rookie in the Western League, got drafted by Washington, went to their camp, and made the camp as an 18-year-old. So he went from midget house in Prince Albert to the NHL in 3 seasons. And we talk about standards. I remember fishing on the banks of the Saskatchewan River with Steve like that guy was committed to everything he did. Like if he was fishing, he was doing it with excellence. If he was training, he was doing it like that dude was dialed in right from a young age. And, he had a great career in the NHL. He's won some Western League stuff. He's a guy of great character, but he held you guys to a high standard but still had great relationships with you.
Having him as a coach was huge. Like he was still, his work ethic was, through the charts, and, he expected us to do the same. And I feel like, when I moved on to PA and when I went to camps, just kind of that effect of that work ethic, that he held us to is carried on to my other places. So then hopefully, guys from these places, get up to this standard, and then, it just kind of keeps steam rolling down. But yeah, I still remember, scratch skates in the morning playing 2-on-2 with the guy, and he did not want to lose.
Right.
There was a lot of blood some days, and it didn't matter.
So give us, as 3 different areas of advice for players, for parents, and for coaches. What are some advice that you would give to a young 14-year-old Chase Coward if you were talking to him today?
It'd probably just be, don't kind of let things discourage you. Like there's always going to be rough days or, rough patches, and you're going to go through stuff. But as long as you have a good work ethic and a good attitude towards it, you're going to go far. And just kind of, there's going to be days. I know I've had those days, but if you can find some way to get something out of the days, you're going to thank yourself when you're, older, because it's just going to benefit you so much.
And it might sound awkward to ask a 20-year-old for parent advice, but you grew up in a home that had billets. You had junior players living with you, and I haven't really talked about this on the podcast, but I wrote a best-selling book called Home Away from Home. I traveled around Western Canada interviewing Western Hockey League cities and billets, and wrote a book about billets in junior hockey. And without billets, junior hockey does not exist in its current format and state. So from your perspective, the parent advice I'm asking you for is, across the country right now, parents have sent their 16, 17, 18-year-old son, maybe for the first time, to places like Flin Flon and Vancouver and points in between to live with a stranger, a new family. You as a billet brother, like a young boy growing up, what are some things that your parents did to help sort of bring that adopted son into the household and make them part of your family? What was some things that you would share with families now for today's wisdom?
I mean, like when I was a kid, when we brought them in, I mean, they were all, great kids and great families. Like we still talk to the families today. So just kind of my parents, kind of built the bond with, their families too, and not just the kid. So then, that helped, and just kind of, they're going to be looked after. Like I know parents get scared when, you send their kids away, but the billets are amazing. Anywhere you go, like you just gotta, I know it's scary, but you just kind of gotta relax sometimes. And, they're at a good house. And my parents, they'd make sure they have everything, or if they needed anything, they'd text one of them, just kind of like anything. If it was like milk from the grocery store, or certain cereal, or they'd put it on the list, and we'd have, family game nights, and, everyone would play. And I mean, those got competitive and very competitive. I remember we'd have to take pictures of Monopoly boards so no one cheated the next day. But just like those family activities that you might do at home, you do them here. Like right now we play cards some nights, and, they may get competitive some nights, but, it's kind of that family bond, kind of home away from home, as you said earlier. It's, they make you feel like one of their own for 10 months of the year.
Yeah, fantastic. And then as a young coach, like you came in as an assistant coach at an academy. There's other young coaches out there, whether they're 18 or 20 or 25. Like what would be some advice you'd give to a young guy wanting to give back to the game as a coach right now?
I say just, if you have anyone that, that's coaching, you can start small. I mean, I've been coaching power skating for years now, helped out at a lot of camps. I mean, you don't have to jump into an assistant coach role right away. and start off with some little camps, see if you enjoy it. And then if you do, then, jump to the assistant coach. But I think the biggest thing I'd tell younger coaches, I mean, you're younger, so they're going to, see you as kind of know what's cool essentially nowadays, kind of what's going on in the world. So you're just going to have to, use that to help create a bond with them so that, if something's going on with them, either at home, at billets, whatever, they have the courage and they're comfortable to, come up and talk to you about the issues or what's going on, or if they, want to try and work on something or, ask your thoughts or something. Just the relationship nowadays is such a huge and crucial part.
That's great advice. Coming from a young guy that's been around the block, dealt with all kinds of adversity, whether it was being cut from your U15 team or whether it's dealing with some injuries and being traded. I think you've faced quite a bit in your young career, and that's some sage advice. So I really appreciate you doing that for us, and we're excited that you have had the chance tonight to be on our 10th podcast, and we're on episode 10, and excited to see where things continue with PHA. And we talked about you lots with our student athletes. Even this year, we reference you as a role model and someone that our current athletes and they can look up to. So as your season unfolds and you have your home opener against Moose Jaw Warriors this weekend, and as you kick out your first shutout in a Raiders outfit, it's going to be awesome to be cheering you on down here and watching your success this year. We're thankful for you tonight, Chase, and really glad that you come on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.